Okay, I also want to talk about owning and moving around the stage. This is a very key thing to take on board if you ever want to be a very good speaker. And it's kind of taking it to that next level. A lot of the time we move around aimlessly. And depending on the time, I'm going to talk about it in quite a lot of detail. I'm going to show you how to do it, but I'm going to show you a very advanced technique that will really transform your speaking if you get this right. Okay? What we need to do, first of all, is when we stand up, we need to make sure that we're standing from the start very kind of quite sturdy in our place, standing very comfortably as we give that first 20 seconds of our talk. Because at that point, everyone's kind of almost judging you, saying, okay, what's this person got? And if you stand there with confidence, you're going to find that, and this is the normal confidence stance that I use, if you're standing there like this, you're going to find everyone's like, cool, they know their stuff. And that credibility that they've given you, that authority they've given you is valid in their minds. It's just the perception that people have. And it's normally just down to our stance. Probably think about teachers you've had in the past at school. There's some teachers just didn't get any authority over the children. It's normally because they're like, oh, come on, calm down. And there's no kind of solid attitude to it. There's some teachers you didn't know why, but they just stood there and everyone was quiet as soon as they walked in the room. It wasn't ever strict. It's just they just stood there with a lot of confidence, and so therefore they won that authority battle basically. That's what you need to do with that. So the way you stand is very important. And at the start, for about the first 20 seconds, you want to stay very, very still. Use your hands, of course, but don't move around too much. Once you're into your talk, you then need to start moving. You can't just stay in one place all the time. So what you need to do is just move around and use the stage as much as you can. So you'd move towards people if you want to get more rapport with people because you're closer to them, and your voice would drop a little bit because you wouldn't carry on projecting at the same level. But you'd use it and you'd come very close to people and drop your voice a little bit. Then you'd walk back. Don't necessarily have your back to the audience too much. So, you kind of lose a lot of rapport there. But then you can kind of keep, like for instance with Alex here, I would probably keep my shoulders so they stay within you, and then I could talk to you guys over here, but I'm not ignoring Alex. Does that make sense? So you can move over here, and also you can move over here likewise. You can also make sure your chest is always pointing at your audience. If you start turning around like this, you don't know what's going on, and it just loses a lot of rapport with the audience.
And you move around to kind of generate a bit more energy into your presentation, because obviously if you just stood there, it might get a bit flat.
Yeah, exactly. It adds a bit more variety. It's just another string to your bow, basically. That if you just stand there, you'll be a normal speaker. If that makes sense. If you move around, people will be like, oh Christ, they've got a bit of confidence to move around as well. It'd be a good surprise for people. And it's just subtle, but it makes you look like 10 times better. Does that make sense? So you'd move around a little bit. The way you do it is you move, stop, and then deliver information. So you can still speak as you're walking, but you want to be able to kind of move, keep on speaking, you stop, and then you deliver some information at this point. You can do it very effectively and very powerfully if you do it in a particular way. You can, like for example, if I'm speaking over here, and I'll be talking about certain subjects, a certain area of my focus, for example, talking a little bit, and drop my eyes a little bit, lose a little bit of eye contact just for a moment, and then deliver material over here. What you'll find is if you go bam straight away and deliver the most important part of the message, it's going to be very powerful for you over there. It'll be powerful for everybody because you'll see it happen. But that one person I've delivered it to, so Nicola over here, as I present that, it'll be very powerful as long as I've kind of, almost like it feels like you've lost that rapport because I'm moving away from you and looking down, and then deliver it back to you there. It's quite a powerful thing to do. Make sense?
Yeah.
So have a think about how you move.
Would you practice when you're going to do that within a presentation, or does it just sort of naturally flow as you?
Of course, yeah. So I practice moving when I present. I practice the whole of my presentation, and not just the words, not just kind of getting it out, not just in front of the mirror. I make sure I practice moving around quite a bit and getting used to it. There's the next stage though, which I want to talk to you about, because at the end of the day, I want to make sure that you're always really challenging yourself at your skill level. If I tell you something that's a bit too advanced for you, don't worry about it, that's fine. I want to make sure I'm pushing you all the time to show you how to keep on improving. Because you guys can walk and move and stop. It's not easy to do it all together at the same time whilst you're thinking about what you're saying, but get used to it. That's the first stage. The second stage is anchoring the stage. And if you can get this, subtly, you'll be able to persuade your audiences at a massive level. And I want to talk to you about it. What you decide to do, you decide to say at some places you have power spots on your stage. So you've got to think about what you want the audience to take away with them, and you've got to think about what you want them to achieve at the end of the, or take away with them at the end of the presentation. Then, so for example, for me in this session, I want you to take away a new skill, and also you know there's more to learn, but also you're gaining confidence all the time. Does that make sense? So it's almost like a journey. So at the start, we started over here, didn't I? I started asking you all the questions over here. I'm probably going to end up the day over here, talking to you much more from here and much more from over here. And the reasons being is because I started over here asking you lots of different questions, and that's kind of like the area that we're starting to think, oh, here's a curiosity, and we're getting out the problems over here. And over here, you've learnt it all. So I start giving feedback from over this place. So when you give your next presentations, I'll be over here this time, because it's the natural journey as you come across the room. Does that make sense to everybody? It's an advanced technique. It's very subtle, but it's an advanced technique. And you won't notice it in a half-an-hour presentation or a 10-minute presentation. But if you've got a little bit longer, let's say you've got a day, then you really want to think about that. If you over-deliver material for over half an hour, you can use anchoring on your stage. You would think about the stories, everything you talk about needs to be in a certain way. So if you talk about, okay, this is a perfect example. I always give the story of where I am right now in the business and where I used to be. So how I used to be an awful quivering wreck whenever I presented, and now I can do it to large audiences. If I gave that story, I'd need to be over here when I'm talking about what I can do right now and how I present to large audiences. I'd need to talk about all my weaknesses over here and keep it in that way. Does that make sense?
Does left and right matter, or does it just happen to be where you...
No, you just choose your place and make sure you do it in that way. But then you can even have other areas of the stage as well, but we'll talk about that later stages. But then what happens is when you start speaking, you can use those positions, and people remember that this area over here is the how well we're doing area. Does that make sense? And over there is the kind of the more we've got a few problems to work on over there. Does that make sense? Think about how you can use that for your presentations. It depends what you want. So, for example, Likana, you were talking about the pros and cons of living in London. You might do pros being over here and cons being over here, for example. Not that there's anything to do with you guys over here or anything like that. But it's, yeah, you would use it. And then if you wanted to persuade people at the later date, over here you've been talking about the great stuff, and over here you've been talking about crappy stuff. So next time you think, okay, well, what do I want my audience to take away? If it's something like I want to persuade them to live in London, you'd say, so it's up to you wherever you live. But the thing is, like, they'll remember all the benefits over here if you've been doing it for a long enough period and you've made it quite obvious that over here is a great place to live in London. The cons, you say, but if you choose to live outside of London and you still from over here, and it just subtly people remember, well, over there didn't feel that good, over there felt really good, and so subtly they'll be persuaded to go and live in London. Does that make sense?